Gorgeous faces. It's so nice to see. You know what? Honestly, guys, this has been one of those days sitting here with you for the next hour and stealing some precious time is pure manna from heaven. I think I used that correctly. It's Gabra Zackman, right?
Yes, it is.
Gabra Zackman. I'll tell you how I first heard about Gabra, but you know the rules, business as usual. Only quirky questions, please. Nothing like weird. If you want to be educated, do a Google search, go on a Facebook group. Let's have fun tonight. I first heard about Gabra through Curtis. Curtis sent me an email or a message saying, have you ever had Gabra Zackman? Gabra's the reason I'm in this business. I love Gabra. Gabra's basically, he told me about how you invented sliced bread and you were like, you know, created electricity and helped Picasso and everything. And that became a theme with everyone that talked about you. And I'd asked a few people, I said, I want to talk to people. A lot of people are really, really great at social media, and that's fine. And we know that, and we're learning the rules. I want to talk to the jobbing narrators that have had their feet on the ground day after day, that have been just doing this work for years. And I've been asking people, and Erin is like, Gabra, I think she's mentioned you more than once. So many people have. So I've finally got you trapped here for an hour. Tell me about 10-year-old Gabra.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you for that lovely introduction. That's beautiful.
Everyone loves you. You are well loved.
That's so I'm lucky this way. I am a great lover of people. I truly am. Like, I love to engage in conversation. I love different people. I love to teach. I love to do what I do. I am a joyous, there's got to be a word for it, like someone who sort of dances around the world and like just loves all the conversations. But that's me. That truly is me. So
are you from New York?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And very much, actually very, very old school New York. So I grew up in the suburbs, but my father grew up in Brooklyn. My mother grew up in the Bronx. And the way I am is a very sort of old kind of New York. And in fact, where I live now in Queens feels very old New York to me, meaning where all the people, all of the working class people, all of the artists, the teachers, the families, people from different backgrounds, everyone speaks a different language here. We all live here together. And that's very old New York.
Yeah.
But you asked 10-year-old Gabra.
10-year-old Gabra, what were you doing? What were you thinking? Did you have big dreams? Were you living in the moment? Were you obsessed with a certain TV show? Who was 10-year-old Gabra?
Well, 10-year-old Gabra is actually close to this Gabra, which is great. 10-year-old Gabra was like very brave, endlessly creative, so into animals. I was actually thinking about this recently. You know, when you talk about like different paths, like an artist, or like for me, it's like, or an oceanographer, or I actually wrote in a book somewhere, probably when I was just under 10, when I grow up, I want to be a zookeeper, not realizing that zoos often mistreat animals, but I just wanted to be around animals so much. But I think, you know, I was sort of endlessly creative, and I loved nature, and I loved animals, and I loved stories. And that person is very much the person who exists now. But I have to say, and I don't know how many other people would agree with this, that just those middle years, like the middle years, meaning like the middle adolescent years, it took me on a dark path. And then like, I feel like I wrestled my way through. I started to come out of it, but like sort of junior high into high school. That was a rough
Tell
time.
me about that dark, because I am fascinated by that subject, because I believe that around
I'm
10.
I'm drinking now as we talk of the dark.
Yeah.
If that's acceptable, or if it doesn't matter if it is or not, I'm drinking dark.
I would drink in a second if I wouldn't pass out from the heat. Okay,
Yeah, and
so
note I have more work to do today, so it's going to be an interesting read later.
but Gabra, this is because I have a theory that we're our true strongest selves starting to show what we love and like desire things when we start to get to the age that like we stop being our parents' children so much as we start to like think, hey, this is my world too. And then the lovely world tries to stomp on that, in my
Yeah.
experience, from most people I've met, as quickly as it can, so that you're not a problem for the herd. So, and I revisit that because it comes up in a lot of people's 10-year-old calls, and a lot of people happily trot on to college and they're the same person and they're just lucky, 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 but something always hits. And
Mhm.
what I'm fascinated by is at what point, and you can say as much or as little about
Oh,
what
yeah.
obstacles hit, but I'm
Mhm.
fascinated in the thinking and the mindset that gets people back to their 10-year-old self. Like, so
Mhm.
when did it start not being so joyous? When did the world try to stomp on you?
Mhm. What a wonderful question. I have to say I agree with you that a lot of us have had these experiences, and a lot of us have not. The ones that have are the artists, and the ones that have not are not the artists. So that, I think it's kind of that simple. Um, I would say for me, it was um, a cauldron of time, meaning
Oh, I
there
love
was
that.
right, there was a
Oh, I
cauldron.
love that expression.
So there
Okay,
was like
sorry, go ahead.
there was like there was a death in the family. There was a death of my grandfather. There was some health issues in my amongst my parents, and then there was like rough times at school. And like I always think back to that because I'm like, from this cauldron, this artist was born, truly.
Right.
But that's where like it just began to get, it was rough. Were some rough middle years.
And what was the voice in your head telling you at the time? You can do this, you've got this, or you're not going to give in, or what's wrong with
No,
me?
no, I think that, yeah, I think the voices were the opposite voices, actually. I think the voices were like, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not this enough. I was also actually, when I was quite young, I was forget, I'm not sure when this ended, but I was painfully shy, which is very hard for people to imagine, even I think, when they meet me now, because I'm not now. It's not like it's hidden anywhere. I'm painfully gregarious now, but I was like painfully like couldn't speak around people. Which also I think sometimes is like bespeaks a young artist. So no, the voices were not positive voices. No, no, no. That's taken a lifetime to turn them into positive voices, and like a
See,
lifetime of yoga and meditation and therapy and self-care and
and that path is the path of the artist. That is how
I
an
think,
artist is formed. The path of healing and fighting and rebellion, I think, is what creates an artist.
yeah, very much so. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. I think so. What did you do? So in school, in the school hierarchy, who was Gabra? Were you,
Like
from
starting at
what you're
age 10.
saying, you weren't cheerleader?
No, though I actually became one in college just to show everyone that I could, and it was wicked fun. I loved it. It was wicked fun. In the school hierarchy, I mean, I wound up being, um, I would say I went from being like a sort of sweet, shy girl who had a lot of friends and loved to play and like had a lot of like stuffed animals and glass animals, right? Loved animals. Then in the awkward middle years, I became a follower who did not have my own voice and just followed all the popular people around and desperately wished to be popular. Um, and that didn't work out well. That was a nasty chunk of time. And then I wound up, I had some great mentors who became my best friends, who were basically like, can we, is this a non-cursing forum? Do we care? Is
No,
cursing?
we've had Johnny Heller on here. I love Johnny. I've told Johnny he's like the what I measure it against. Like most calls, I haven't had to put on the child protection button.
Right. But he might,
My favorite thing about him.
I love him. I love him. Yeah, I had a bunch of really cool friends who were like, fuck those people. They're boring. You're cool and we're cool. And then by the time I was in, this is a great story that I told someone recently that you might all enjoy. By the time I was in then junior high, there was this is so out of a John Hughes film, that there were, I was in this suburban, mostly white, mostly wealthy.
Yeah, you're talking to the original Valley Girl. I get the John Hughes.
The most toxic people you could possibly imagine were my
like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. There were two different places to eat lunch. One was North House and one was South House. And if I'm not, it was where it was in the, I guess this was not junior high. This would have been high school, I guess. I can't remember if it's junior high or high school. Someone will watch this and say, Gabra, how could you have forgotten? But I don't care. I think it was junior high. So it applied to where it was on campus. But all of the cool kids ate in South House, if I'm not mistaken. All of the like dorks, nerds, whatever label you could put on them, ate in North House. And I feel like I spent a couple of days in South House. And I was like, wow, these are the worst people ever. And all my friends were like, yeah, fuck this. And we all just took over a table in the other place. And we were like, everyone here is the best. And of course, everyone in North House were the people who like created the video games and are in the coding world. They were all like the nerds, the geeks that were like refurbishing cars and selling them for whatever. They were all the
now
like
they're
cool
multimillionaires and
now they were all cool. But so it turned around. So that's what wound up happening. What wound up happening was like I went from being a real wallflower to being someone who was like, fuck the establishment. And that's very much who I am today, 100%.
You found your spark.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Although I think I had it when I was like young, right? Like I think like 10 and before, I really had such like joy of life and creative spark. And then again, I think those middle years, oof, did they do a number on me? And then something really good came out of that.
I also think it's like chemicals. I think when you're like a teenager at like that age, you're just an idiot. I used to just like get in cars with like a friend knows some weird guy that pulled up out in front of the school. Why not get in his car and take some weird pill?
Oh, I know. No, me too. When I think back on some of the things I did, oh my goodness. And I was so smart and I was still stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, like smart enough to get yourself into trouble, but not smart enough to get yourself out of it. So, okay, so you're at any point or at what point, oh, Barbara, I used to hitchhike like a stupid. Yeah, I think we all, and I think sometimes it's a different world now. I think I dread thinking what would have happened to me if I'd done some of the things I did when I was young.
Oh, I
now.
Know.
Like
well, or even just if you hadn't been so lucky, or if I hadn't been so lucky. Like I saw someone once post something, it was in the middle of Me Too, right at the beginning of it, not that we're over it, but like right at the beginning of it, that someone said, here's the difference between me and someone who was raped. I was lucky.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, does that resonate with me?
Yeah.
Wow, does that resonate with me?
You think about so were you thinking career at what point did you think what I want to be when I grow up? Aside from the zoo, because
I know the zookeeper. Zookeeper is strong.
Yeah.
It still exists, but not a zookeeper, like an it's like switched from zookeeper to maybe oceanographer to maybe like woman who wears pith helmet and goes into wherever and lives.
You got anything with birds. I love animals so much, but my problem is I couldn't even work at a vet because I can't handle that level of like heartbreak. I just can't. I just like I cry if like you step on a spider. So like I'm not the right person. You want to be a healer. Okay, so you've got the animal loving and everything, but what's are you thinking, how am I going to make a living? How am I going to pay the rent?
No, I don't recall any of those thoughts. I don't recall any of that, to be honest. And what I do recall of anything, because I was very smart, was I recall taking acting classes when I was in high school in the city, in New York City. So I lived outside the city and took classes, and I heard all of the actors, they were probably in their 20s, and I heard them all talking about how they couldn't get a job. And I remember saying to people, that is so stupid. Why would you ever go into a profession where you can't get a job? In high school, I
Yeah.
swore I would never, ever do that. And so as to how I wound up like making my living as an actress and then as a narrator, but ultimately as an actress my whole life
But
thus far.
did that belief of why would you ever go into something that you can't make a living at, do you think that held you back or stopped your progress at any point before you did it
No,
anyway?
I don't think that it did, because it switched, I guess, really early. It was just that I fell in love with it, and I couldn't stop doing it. So I was like, yeah. Obviously, I'm not going to be stupid enough to do this for a profession, but I'll spend all my time doing this and get a degree in it. But obviously, I wouldn't be stupid enough to think that I'll make a living doing any part of this. But that might have held me back, actually, because I wonder if I had thought differently if I would have started making a living at this a lot earlier, because I spent many, many years waiting tables.
Yeah,
I did that
I've
for.
got to tell you, I thought I was so smart that I can do a full-blown corporate job in the daytime, and I'll just act in the evenings and the weekends, and I'm not going to be poor. I don't have to be a starving artist. And literally, this is how long I was stupid. I started narrating in 2016, and my accountability partner, I was still rocking up to awful
Yeah.
jobs and trying to be a full-time narrator. And my accountability partner, Anna Clements, said to me one day, she said, Daniela, you make more narrating now and you don't have time.
Yes.
Why do you keep taking these other things on that you hate and that are taking, but you have to, I thought I was smart girl and that it's
No,
stupid to try to live on an actor's salary. That's what I thought.
no, you're right. Me too. It's a mental shift. I remember, I'll tell you my story of it was because I remember it so clearly, which is that I was right around 30, maybe 29 or so. I was catering because I'd gone from waiting tables to catering. I was in a full tuxedo. I was doing French service. If anyone knows what that is, I'm sorry. And if anyone doesn't, I'm not going to tell you what it is.
It's
So I just that I had the things in my hands, right? I had
yeah, yeah.
it's like
My
pincers.
husband did that a few times.
Oh God. Dreadful. It was dreadful because you had to carry the tray of like when someone would be like, great, it's filet mignon tonight. It would be like, oh, and you've got party of 12. And you'd be carrying the tray with the 12 and with one arm and having to
I was a
serve.
bad waitress. I injured myself. I injured others. I dropped
Oh, and I'm
cakes.
sorry to say I was excellent at it.
See,
I was a
that's actually not good because that means that you had it always to fall back on. That's
it's right.
not a good thing.
No, but in the origin story, what happened was I see it in like, in those movies where they have someone have like an out of body like monologue and everyone behind them freezes. So in the origin story, I'm carrying the French service
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
and I'm in the middle of a floor and everyone around me freezes and I speak to God and I say, all right, I'm not doing this anymore. So if there's a way for me to move forward as an actress, terrific. And if not, I'm going back to school and I will do anything else and I won't do this anymore.
That
So
is the
figure
opening pilot of a Netflix series.
I know, right? It's perfect,
That is,
right?
I can see you with the
In the tuxedo that was one size too large with the
Yep,
French service things. And
yep.
and fairly shortly thereafter, I got an introduction through Jonathan Davis, by the way, who is my dear friend and the founder of my entire career. I
Wow.
got an intro from Jonathan Davis to his then company. It has now since closed. It was non-commercial audio, actually. It was through the National Library Service for the Blind. It was a company called Talking Books, and a bunch of people you would know in the industry all had worked there for years, started there, continued there for many, many, many years.
That's I started RNIB over here. I think it's the
Oh
equivalent.
yeah.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And I think
exactly.
it's good for you. I think it,
I
first
do.
of all, it's a good way to go in because your
Yeah.
motives, I mean, you're not doing that for a quick buck. And I've got a lot more respect for somebody that isn't going in for a quick buck.
Well, I learned a lot. It's about
Yeah.
service. Like I was actually doing something of service.
Yeah.
And for me at the time, it was actually more money than catering. So for me, it was legitimately a way that I got myself out of catering
Yeah.
was when that then over, and then there was that awkward period of time where it overlapped and where I was getting audiobook jobs for the nonprofit during the day and catering jobs at night. And it was so sticky. It was so bad and so sticky. But ultimately, I just knew, and I used to talk to people about it all the time. And I used to say, this is not my path. We have to know what our path is. I know there's a way that I can make a living doing something that I love. And I talked about it all the time. I would be like walking around in like different uniforms with like carrying, I could just see myself having these conversations in all the places I worked, carrying like huge thing, like magnums of wine with like different restaurant uniforms, saying to people, I know there's a different way. I
But
know
it's
there's
what
a different.
Karen Cummins says. It's the story you took because I was still telling Anna, this sounds like crazy. I was like, I'm going to have to quit narrating
Mm,
and just keep these in service of these part-time jobs.
right.
Narrating is making more money. You're booked full time. You don't have enough time in the day, and you're going to quit quit narrating so you can keep the survival job. You know, I love the fact that you had your inner voice as a guide and you listened to it. You
Mm.
cast yourself as the star in your life and
Wearing it,
you
wearing an
listened.
ill-fitting tuxedo, wearing an ill-fitting
Yeah,
tuxedo. Yes, but yes, wearing an
yeah.
ill-fitting tuxedo, I cast myself as the star.
But
True,
all this,
true.
the Netflix pilot, she would start off as the waitress in the ill-fitting tuxedo. She would. That's why we would love her.
That's right.
So
That's,
you narrate, and was there a point that were you acting slash narrating? What were you doing? What was your life looking like at that side, at that
yes,
point?
yes, yes, yes. So I spent a lot of my 30s, let's say 30s into early 40s, doing a lot of. I'd gone to the Academy for Classical Acting with the George Washington University. It's connected to the Shakespeare Theater down in DC. So I spent a lot of my, after I finished from there, I spent a lot of my like from like 29 to maybe 40, early 40s, doing a lot of Shakespeare, a lot of regional theater, a lot of Shakespeare, going out of town to do stuff. In between, sometimes then restaurant jobs when I got back, narration when I got back. It was all sort of on top of each other. I also started, let's see, when was this? In my late 30s, I started writing. So that's also quite a big part of my life now. So at some point it became acting, writing, narration, all as whenever they could all be fit in. There was a time I was living in Denver for a couple of years, and there was a time when I was living in a space. I started my home studio there, and it was really only quiet at night. I know everyone, I'm sure, has some understanding of what that is. And I was doing a show at the time, so I would perform the show, which was a bit like a 20-minute drive away, drive home, and record into the hours. So you can imagine like doing a play at night, then
Yeah.
recording. Other times, and like even after that, before and after that time, I did a bunch of Shakespeare up in the Hudson Valley that was outdoor Shakespeare, where I would be recording during the day, then performing Shakespeare at night, and sort of had that kind of schedule for a while. Now, starting maybe a couple of years before the pandemic and then ongoing, it's been mostly recording, but it's been like a sort of equal between like if I talk about time, if I talk about like income, it's mostly recording. But if I talk about time, it's like really split evenly between acting, writing, coaching, teaching, little bit of directing of audio, and what else? I don't know, anything.
I want to dig into something here. I suspect part of this is the New York girl thing, which I am totally, you can ask Johnny and Joanna, I'm like a stalker girl fan of. Like, I like to think in my other life, I'm a New York girl. I do the street style. I love New York people. Like, I'm jealous as hell of you. But another thing is, I had a call with Julia Whalen, and I asked her about like when what did you learn from when you started? And she was like, it wasn't that hard. And to be honest, the way she said it, because people say this all the time, she was like, I don't care what people think. And it wasn't arrogant. It was just complete inner confidence. I'm sure she has weaknesses because our society right now, we all want to be authentic and we all want to listen to like how we're human and everyone else has issues and confidence and weakness and nobody's really as confident as they appear on social media. But I want to hear about the people that really are confident. And whether you either fake it extremely well or you developed it or it's an inner core thing, but you have like just like the Julia Whalen thing, it struck me an eye to eye bone of steel. This is me, screw it. And how did you acquire it? Do you work on it? Do you consciously do it? Because I'm not having any more conversations about how it's really hard for all of us. We get it now. We've all been on social media for 3 years. I want to hear about how you do it. How do you come across like a kick-ass, I've got this person?
Your questions, I wasn't prepared for this to be so interesting.
Oh,
your questions are so good. They're really, you're making me think about like the way I walk through the world. This is not something native to me at all. This is cultivated. I think for me, I think all of it, starting from young, although I had a very like privileged in all the ways upbringing. Yet there was a lot that was very, very, very difficult. There was a lot that was very heartbreaking and painful. Even in the way that I was well taken care of by two parents who loved me and who I adored. One of whom is still living and who I still adore. And a brother who I was just in California seeing with my mom, seeing my brother and his family. But I think this, as I grew older, I feel like even being a generally healthy, able, privileged human, I had a lot of rough stuff thrown at me increasingly. And I think that we all make a choice. And this was from young. And I think the choice is this: does it take me down, or do I make it the ground from which I root?
Resilience. You chose resilience.
That's it. There aren't more choices than that. That's why you see people sort of like lose their minds. Even like during this pandemic was a great way to sort of see that. Like people lost their minds. I did too. But did I stay in that like madness? Or did I find a way to go, time to regenerate? How do I regenerate? How do I do it? How do I find a different way of moving forward in the world? That is a cultivated craft to move forward when things are really rough or not going your way or not what you dreamed of or not what you imagined, or when people are telling you can't. It is a cultivated thing to say, well, I don't give a fuck what you think. That's what you're talking about, right? Is that spirit
that's
of
what
like,
I'm talking about.
I actually don't give a fuck what you think because I'm going to go that way. And something I always wish is that I had more of this when I was just a bit younger, because I pursued being an actress in a very conventional way. And a lot of wonderful things happened for me, but I just wish I hadn't listened to the people who said, you have to do it this way, and you have to do this, and you have to do this, and you have to do this. I would have gone through it very differently if I hadn't listened to voices.
Can I challenge you though? So where you are right this minute, having this conversation with me, and we use our life as our tool as actors, and the understanding that you've come to at this point, that you fought for something that you didn't have earlier that you have now gained. I had a conversation about I was talking to somebody about the many years that I wasted in my life trying to be thin. I literally
Oh,
put my
right.
life on
Right.
hold. So because I
Correct.
couldn't live a real life until I was thin. And then once
Yeah.
I was thin, but in the conversation with this person, I had an epiphany because I was
Mm,
explaining to her that my friends don't get it. They literally do not get it. Because
mm,
if I could show it up in a room with that gone, then oh my God, I could I could light the world on fire, right? But because of what I've already done, but with that as well, without that, it's what you're saying. If I had this strength earlier, oh my God, look what I could have done. But I realized that's the key thing. They don't get it and they never will. There is a depth to me because I have not had that and I felt that lack and I fought through it that none of my friends will get. So, yes, I've missed out on a lot of opportunities. I probably could have been president of the United States or God forbid or whatever, but I wouldn't have that depth. You wouldn't have this that you can draw upon if you had gotten it together younger or earlier. And
what
look
a
at what
beautiful.
that probably does to you as an actress.
It's funny you're talking about being thin and that always trying to, right? And for me, it was trying to fit into a box, which is weirdly not so different.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't a body box exactly. It kind of was, but it was like it was a box nevertheless. It was like, oh, you can only, if I could fit into a box, the box that you wish to put me in,
Yeah.
then, right? And
It
that's like,
presents differently. It presents as weight to me. But we all have our, the lessons we learn. And there's an old joke, something that, one of those stupid movies where the guy goes, "Oh yeah, go out with a fat friend because they always have to try harder," which is so offensive on so many levels. And I'm sorry for those people that get triggered. Just
yeah, yeah. No, I know.
don't. But I have had that feeling because of what society tells you that I've had to try harder, even when I was skinny my whole life. And you fitting into the box, that's you trying. We're all
Yeah.
trying. And it's sometimes, who's that guy, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a,
Yes, yes. So that's right. That's right. I think
yeah,
my brother gave me that book, actually. I
it's
have it
there's a
somewhere.
Netflix documentary. I haven't been able to get through the book. It just didn't speak to me, but I did catch it on Netflix and it was it's a basic concept. But what if I just didn't try? God,
Right,
what if I stopped? I mean,
right.
look at you. You are like the reaction when I put the video out about your call was there's a spark and nobody could say everyone just loves Gabra. But that's what we all want. That's what the movie stars have. That's what celebrity is. That
Mm-hmm.
indefinable spark. And
Mm.
you've held on to it. And I love that. I admire the hell out of that. So,
Thank you.
so what do you wish? Because you coach as well.
Mm.
And what do you wish that you could like get the people you coach to understand that that sometimes they're not ready to or they won't understand, and you wish in your heart that you could just like give them an IV and stick it in them and make them understand?
Yes, I have two things. I would say they come up in every single lesson with everyone I work with,
Mm.
and it is irrespective of age, gender, experience level. It's irrespective of everything. It's the same.
Wow.
The same. Um, one of them is there's no competition. That's something I wish I had known as a young actress. There is no competition. They, I speak about this all the time. This is so heady, but I think you're the kind of person who I think will like it. But I think that competition, and particularly there's now a different kind of competition in this business, but not really. It is fake. It is a fake competition. I think that it is a system of the patriarchy that we all buy into, which says, oh, let us keep hustling. Oh, let us keep ourselves without power. Oh, let us keep our rates really low so that we can get more work. And then
The
you've got
elephant
like,
on the chain, and the chain's taken off and the elephant still doesn't move.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is actually, it's a huge part of the conventional acting industry, and it is becoming more and more a part of the, I'm sure everyone on this call has noticed it, that it is it's become a different part of this industry, the voice world, than it was previously. But there isn't any. There is no competition. Competition is a construct that is made by the people who have all of the wealth and wish to keep it. That's what competition is. That's my
There are
opinion.
millions of books out there. It's like the lottery. You've got a 50-50 chance of winning. It doesn't matter what you do. You're either win or you don't. You're either the voice or you're not.
Well, that's right. And also there's that piece. I would also say, so maybe I'm going to toss a third thing into this,
Yes,
what I
please.
coach in every lesson. But like number one is like, there's no competition. Lesson number two, well, it all leads back to the same lesson. So let's go actually with the big lesson first, which is that actually, really all anybody wants to hear is what is authentic to you, or you, or you, or you, or you, or you. That's in every artistic discipline. That is what you have. That is all you have. And that is what is desired, is the most not fake authentic. The word authentic is too overused, so it like gets obnoxious, but like we get into this thinking that we get to put a mask on and be something different, and then we can sort of get away from ourselves. And then we learn at some point that the whole purpose is to take all the masks off and be the most authentic version of ourselves in all the artistic disciplines. And that's a really, really difficult lesson to learn, but that is something I teach in different ways every single time I coach. So,
and it's a hard lesson to practice because you're so vulnerable.
God, it is. I know, because we'd rather, it's so much easier just to play someone else or be someone else or like put on a mask but the truth of the matter is that all anybody wants to hear is that which comes authentically from you. So ergo, the reason why really there's no competition is because it wouldn't matter how similar our voices were. Your inner life, your inner soul, what you have to offer is so specific and unique to you, and so different from my inner heart, inner soul, what I have to offer.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I would say is, I think, and now I'm thinking of like how many of the same, how many lessons do I teach over and over and over again, and to different people? We all need the same lessons, right?
Yeah.
I think we all have a really deep purpose, and it is incumbent upon all of us to figure out what is our, particularly as storytellers, what is our purpose in telling stories. Now, for some people, I think they just do this to make money. And
they do. Some people really, it is a business to them, isn't it?
And that's all that it, and well, it should be a business to all of us, but if it's just a business, there's actually nothing wrong with that. Like go with God, but just like make sure that it's clear to you that that's your purpose, and then sort of make your work akin to that. Part of my purpose is that it's a business for sure. So let's not let that go. That's a part of my purpose, but it's the only purpose. And then I think increasingly with like all of the hustling and all of there's a lot of new people in the business, and there's a sort of like growth of the industry. I think people do forget about craft and what it is to really not just say like, here's my purpose as a storyteller, but to actually like take all those years of all of the years and all of the lessons and all of the things that we do to figure out the sort of craft of telling a story, and all those like lessons and everything is brilliant. But what it really comes down to is, how do I separate all of the masks that I wear from that which is authentically me? How do I channel myself within a story that I tell? How do I meld with the author, because it's really in service of the writer of a book, a play, or whatever? And how is my purpose served, which for me is always, how am I doing something that is healing and transforming the world by the telling of story? That's me. It's not everybody, but I think it's a lot of us actually. How is it that I am in service of this greater good, and how am I melding with the voice of an author, and how am I using that which is authentic to me to serve this purpose? And then it's just not possible that anyone could compete with that which is authentically me. They have that which is authentically them. That is their greatest treasure, really. That's what, so I think these things are deep, but we all wrestle with them. And I think all of us will come to something and say, no, but I'm not X enough, right? I'm not X enough. No, I should sound smarter for this kind of material, or I should sound more vulnerable for this kind of material, or I should sound sexier for this kind of material. And truth of the matter is, all anyone really wants is that which is authentically, only uniquely you and yours.
Yeah. A hard lesson I'm learning. I had a couple of epiphanies. I had some coaching with Aaron and Hillary. I mean, you do every year. I get coaching at the beginning of the year because I think you have to. I'm learning that the whole quirky voice, vocal fry, hit your vowels harder, try to sound like that girl. Like, that's not going to help me. They tell you that and you believe it. But then if you have a bad day and you hit social media on like you got knocked back from something but what I've learned is, and it's disturbing, but I think there's something to it, is that being a joyful human being comes through when I narrate, and that if I've been sick or struggling or trying too hard and caring too much and shoulding all over myself 24 hours a day, I should this and that comes through as well. My first narrations were god awful. But like, I hired an editor, but they all were, but I was joyful. And narrators, I mean, writers were, because I started off after RNIB on ACX, and writers would regularly, you made me cry. You moved me to tears. You told my story, and I couldn't believe you said it in a way that made me understand it. And I mean, yeah, working with publishers, it's different. But when do we lose that? I was joyful. And a lot of these new people joining, you can laugh all you want. People standing in the closet with a blanket and making a bit of extra cash, but if they're really, really, really excited, they're bringing joy to it. And if I've been doing it for 6 years and can barely drag myself up in the morning, what are they going to hear? I'm not saying I do that, just in case anyone watches.
No, but I sometimes do it though.
Yeah.
Your point is well taken. I sometimes do it. And let's be honest, there's no shade against a blanket in a closet, which all of us did for a lot of years. Yeah. All of us did that. Come on. There's no good closet and a good blanket, and you're in business, really.
There's always someone, though. I remember the guy that told me after I invested everything in a booth and hundreds of engineers, and then he said, "You're not a real narrator unless you have a floating booth." Really?
Wow. I would have definitely told that person to fuck off.
I didn't know better.
I don't even, yeah, of course. I don't even know what that is. Just that, yeah, I don't even understand that.
Yeah.
Weird.
But there's so much information out there. But I think I still keep going back to this Netflix, not Netflix. I'm not a big fan of Netflix anymore, but I'm still thinking the pilot. I'm still seeing you with the freeze frame. If I waved a magic wand and you could have anything you wanted, like right this minute, anything you've struggled to get, anything you want, like right now, what would it be?
It would be a communal farm in upstate New York, where I live with a bunch of my closest friends, some in this industry, some not. And we all have little homes on the communal farm and sort of a barn with a bank of studios. And I also have like a kind of Noah's Ark of animals and enough resources to keep the place going. That's what I would
so
want.
A kind zoo.
A kind zoo.
A kind zoo. I love that. You'd full circle from what you did. Aaron says, yes, let's do it. Kim has a question for you. Did you ever have an exotic pet? And if so, what was it?
It's such a great question. I wish this is a perfect moment for like me to have my cat, who's sort of like a codependent relationship. I have two cats and they're both amazing. And just to be like, this is as exotic as it gets. This lunatic. No, I'm trying to think, how exotic did it ever get? My brother had 3 newts named Olivia, Newton, and John.
They're like lizards. Are they like lizards?
Yeah. No, we had conventional pets. I never had exotic pets. I just think I would be like, I don't know. I'm like, I mind meld with the animals. Whenever I meet animals, I mind meld with them. Like I am someone for a barn of maybe exotic. I don't think the issues with the exotic animals, it's only because of the profession that I'm in, and I narrate books about this all the time. The issue is that we shouldn't have them. As exotic as it would get would be like a sort of brightly colored cow. And
a budgie. I taught Vlad how to say where the body's buried. You can't get more exotic than that.
No, but do you know that I read an amazing book about wild birds? So many people have them and they can't, they don't take good care of them. You take good care of them.
Oh yeah, no, this life, we don't leave the house. We will not go on a vacation as long as Vlad's alive.
Yes, I have a cousin who has birds, who, whenever she travels to see us, she is 5-hour drive or so. She brings her dog and at least 1 or 2 birds with her.
Yeah, and doesn't stop time. You can't buy a pet if you're not going to take care of it.
Truly. I am in service of the very exotic cats I have in this apartment. The horrible, exotic, amazing cats I serve in this apartment.
I always had cats. Unfortunately, I found that the husband, I think he's intimidated by the cat's independence. Or it might be that my cat hated his guts when I first met him.
Right. Either way. Correct. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. 2 more quirky questions. Timothy says cats are just about as exotic as it gets. They are very exotic.
Thank you. Yes.
Barbara says, what's the weirdest gift you've ever received?
Oh, gosh. I have the benefit of being a very weird gifter and therefore a weird receiver of gifts. Well, I'll just say the first thing that comes to mind, which is that I was given a pair of pants, which I refer to as the pants, from Jamie Matler, amazing director, producer, narrator, coach, dear friend. And the pants, as we refer to them, is of many remarkable weird gifts she's given me. The pants reign so high because they are, I wish I would show them to you, but they're at my mom's right now. They reside at my mother's right at the moment. The pants are like the most disgusting, horrible polyester, and they are rainbow colored. And they are, if I'm not mistaken, let me just remember, it is a cat. It's a cat in a cowboy hat riding a horse, riding something else. I mean, it's like the image of the pants. It's the most like repulsive series of things, and absolutely one of the best gifts I've ever received.
I love that.
Also, by the way, gave me a candle. And I don't know where she found this, a pink wax candle with this of a just middle finger up. Those are pretty good ones.
Yeah, that's a good gift giver. Okay, and Barbara says her dad once gave her a hammer, an unwrapped hammer. Oh, I love that. Okay, Barbara, another quirky one. Well, it's not really quirky, but it's a good one. What are you most proud of?
These are such good questions. Okay, I have 2 things. And one of them is a plug. Can I make a plug for something?
Of course. The calls, all plugs are allowed. I'll even put it in the about section. if you've got
That'd be
links.
so nice. It's a really good plug. Okay. So the first thing I'm most proud of is the community of friends and chosen family that I have built. So my own family, my original family, remarkable. My extended family, remarkable, but the community of friends and family that I have built, that's what I'm most proud of. And I would say second to that is, have you ever had Emily Wu Zeller? Have you ever
I
gotten to speak to?
haven't. I do think somebody gave me her name she's on the list of people I'm going to We're booked through the end of the year, but I've got a list of people I'm going to try to sneak some dates in for. So, and
Okay,
she's on that list.
if I could recommend two people to you, and
Okay.
they're part of what I'm going to plug actually is, I would like to recommend Emily Wu Zeller and Ronnie Butler.
Ronnie Butler is definitely on the list.
Yeah, they both are just such special, remarkable, kind, brilliant talents.
Wonderful.
Emily and I, a few years back, created a company together. I see something Erin just posted. It's exactly what's happening.
To be honest, that's what I was hoping it was, because I've seen that cover. I was tempted to put it in the promo video, but then I thought, I would have, but it was the last minute, and I didn't want to like bug you with another email and ask permission. I thought, but yeah, tell us about it. I'm fascinated.
It's a plug for me. You would never have bothered me about it, but Emily and I years ago created a company together called Love Bites Originals. And it is one of the things I'm most proud of. Thus far, it has been mostly my writing. My friend Rachel Fowler has also been part of it. Emily has done a lot of the co-creation and editing of it. Ronnie is going to be part of writing for our next season. And it's basically been short form romance and erotica. We've been creating all of these worlds together that I had written this short form romance, and Emily was interested in creating short form romance and erotica for the LGBTQ plus communities and the BIPOC communities. And so we sort of mind melded and came up with all these like community projects basically that we're working on. But the most recent thing that we've done that's come out is Love at the End of the World, our new series, a pandemic romance called My COVID Romance.
I will link it in the About section if you're watching the YouTube video. So
thank you very, very much. And Erin was a great early listener and supporter of this wackadoo sex farce, and it stars some of my favorite people. I wrote it, and I am the sort of spine narrator. I wouldn't say main narrator. I would say like the sort of spine of this particular one, though it'll wind up being other people will be the focus in others. Emily, again, is part of it. Vikas Adam, Luis Moreno, and Allison Johnson, one of my best friends. So that is the cast of characters. Then Pete Rowan, who's a remarkable creator, engineer, spin doctor, did all of the sound effects and mastered. And we now have this company. We put together all this stuff. So it's like a quirky, funny, wild multicast, and I'm extremely proud of it. And
is it a book as well, like a book you can buy on Amazon and then turned into a multicast?
Yeah. So I wrote it out, and then it's not any different from what's written. So what's written is it's written as a multicast audio, basically. Okay. Basically, it's written as a script. That is what you can find on Amazon as a Kindle read.
And you want to listen to it though.
Yes, you do. Yeah. You do, because it's the multicast nature of it takes it up a level. It next levels it with all of the cast, with all of the talent of the cast.
I'll say this for the benefit of the YouTube audience. Sorry to interrupt, but they won't see the chat. And Erin Moon says, listen to it. It is hilarious. And also that's for the benefit of the people watching this on YouTube. It looks hilarious. I'm very intrigued by it. It also looks like a project of joy. The joy kind of bleeds out of all the promo on it. It looks fun. It just looks fun. And sometimes you just need to joy, right? That's
what we wanted. We say that like we created this company to put heart, heat, and romance out in the world, because who done humor? Heart, heat, humor, and romance out in the world. But, we started to work on this just before the pandemic happened. But then when the pandemic happened, it was like, gosh, what do we all need? We all need to laugh. We all need a little romance. We all need a little sex and sexuality. We all need anything to escape from this, you know?
Yeah.
So that was part of the initial goal of the company, for sure.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. Nobody gets out without answering this question.
Very excited.
Famous last words. If the people watching this in 60 years on YouTube were to take anything away from this conversation, if you left them with one, even if it's a joke, a feeling, a joke, a word of advice, what would you want to leave them with, if nothing else, from this hour?
I would hope that, honestly, I hope that anyone who watches anything I do, engages with me in any way. I mean, it's what I hope for myself. I hope that people say, wow, that is a woman who rocked the shit out of life. I want to rock the shit out of life. If I were Erin Moon, I would have greater purposes like service and nurture and love. I'd be a better person. But I actually think for me, it would be like, God, she just figured out how to rock the shit out of life. Like she figured out how to enjoy it, actually. That's what I hope. I hope people are like, I want to rock the shit out of my life. And I don't want to pay attention to the way anyone says I should do that or shouldn't do that. That's like the other caveat. That's a lot of what we talked about today was like, and don't put me in a box and tell me how I can or can't do that. Or don't tell me I can't enjoy my life because of this or that.
Because their voices become the itty bitty shitty committee in your head.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Can't let them in.
That's right.
This was pure delight. I knew it would be. Just by your submitted photo alone was just your cat was gorgeous. I'm disappointed we didn't get a meet. Well, if we have you back, you've got to bring your cats. You do know I'm going to stalk you and try to get you back sometime.
Oh, yeah, no, anytime. But like maybe you and I could just hang out for a while on Zoom at some point because this was so fun. And
this was wonderful.
I wouldn't mind talking to you for like conservatively 4 or 5 more hours.
Anytime.
That's not intimidating. I hope that's
no, because then I can because you do know I'll be like, oh, all my friends, my New York friends.
Anytime you want. I'm proud to be it. Let me be your New York.
It has been wonderful. Thank you so much, you guys. Thank you for joining all my favorite people. Mwah! The studio audience, gorgeous as always. Thanks. Bye. Bye.